Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Media Boat Podcast. Since we're not doing these on Fridays, we're going to wrap up the best in movies, TV, music, and video games. Not necessarily in that order. My name is Mike. His name is Matt.
My name is Matt. His name is Mike. Thank you for joining us this week on the Media Boat Podcast. We'll talk about all of that, plus a bunch of thoughts today. Today is January the 17th, 2025. This is episode 470. And yeah, let's jump right into it, shall we?
Yeah, let's get right into it because we got a lot of thoughts to cover. But before we get to all of those, we got to start with the music section. Start the music section with the Billboard. Start the Billboard with the Hot 100. And the hottest song in the land is still Die with a Smile by Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars.
Yep.
Coming in at two, a bar song, Tipsy by Shaboomzy. At three, Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish. Coming in at four, Smile, but don't really because it's Morgan Wallen.
Yeah, we were doing so well without him, and then he comes back.
And now you got your top five, Apt by Rose and Bruno Mars.
Again, it's Rose.
As for your album chart, your Billboard 200, at number one is Wham by Lil Baby.
He's back.
Coming in at two, Debbie Tirar, Mas Fotos. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not Debbie. That's Debbie Tirar Mas Fotos
There
by
you
Bad Bunny.
go.
At three, SOS by SZA. That's SZA. At four, GNX by Kendrick Lamar. And ready to get your top five, Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter.
So yeah, the return of a couple of chart mainstays from the previous calendar year. Morgan Wallen, unfortunately, Media Boat Nemesis has returned to the Hot 100 with a new single. Also, it's interesting that there's a Die with a Smile and a Smile on the
Yes.
top five. And yeah, Lil Baby is back with the new record, as is Bad Bunny. So expect both of those to probably stick around for a while. They're usually, when they usually enter the top five, they stay there. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
you say that. But in case you like any of those albums, we have new releases, including Dear Life by David Gray, Balloonerism by Mac Miller. Yes, that Mac
Yes.
Miller.
It is his second posthumous record.
Yep. We also have I Still Want to Share by Sophie Jameson. And lastly, Humanhood by The Weather Station. Not that weather station, but the weather station.
No, they don't actually report the weather.
No, that's now being regulated to AccuWeather.
I thought you were
More
going to say,
profit.
sure. I thought you were going to say Mike Trout for a second.
No, no, he's in fatherhood, not humanhood. All right, let's get to the music news. And hey, you know how those fires have been going on in California? Well, this is not the first story that we're going to have today regarding coming back to work from those fires.
Yeah.
So, the Recording Academy, since we're talking about music here, has released a revised 2025 Grammy Week event schedule, which focuses the organization's efforts on, quote, the events that can be the most impactful, close quote, in the wake of the multiple devastating wildfires that continue to burn across Los Angeles. As it was previously announced, the 67th Annual Grammy Awards telecast on CBS will, as of now, continue to be held on February 2nd, but will have a, quote, renewed sense of purpose, colon, raising additional funds to support wildlife relief efforts and honoring the bravery and dedication of first responders who risk their lives to protect ours. Close quote, according to the announcement. Nearly all non Academy related Grammy weeks have been canceled or postponed, including the traditional party staged by the major music companies.
Yes. So the major labels typically have a Grammy party. Those were canceled. Spotify had an event that's now canceled. So pretty much it's just Academy-led events that are left. Um, yeah, I could imagine that this dominates the conversation at Grammys night. You're gonna hear a lot of people probably talk about both running the show and probably accepting and presenting awards, talk about the relief effort, and it's gonna be a highlight. Um, as it should be. It's where a lot of recording in the major music industry happens. So it has affected countless musicians' lives and countless lives in the recording industry. So, yeah, not a surprise. I think the surprise is that as of this recording, they're still having it that same day. Um, I mean, I have to
Meaning that
imagine
they're
that
still
there
having the
was,
Grammys?
yeah, I mean, we since we've recorded last week, there has been major progress on the effort to
The
curtail the
containments.
fires
Yeah.
and contain. And I saw a lot of notifications today of evacuation warnings getting downgraded and people being allowed to go back to their homes, which is a positive sign. I have my doubts that everything will be contained and dealt with by the time we hit February 2nd. But still, they must be pretty confident that by that date, it will be safe enough to have such a large gathering there. So yeah, as far as right now is concerned, that the Grammys will go on without a hitch. It's just that everything around them will have to change.
And that makes sense because we'll get to it later when we get to TV and movies. But because the Grammys Awards, most of the performances are held within indoors
Yeah.
of, well, it was Staples Center, now it's Crypto Arena. But because it's mainly held indoors, I don't think they have any outdoor performances like they have in the years past, uh, because of the smoke and the fires and safety concerns, that you will see a lot of this being held indoors and contained. And yes, there will be, as we'll get to, raised safety precautions
Yeah.
because this is still a live event. I am still surprised that they're still having it on February 2nd. Like you said, I thought they might be pushing it back at least a month, but I guess not.
Um, I think my impression of the venues is that there is a very strict schedule, and they may not have had time available to them to move to a later date. They may have been locked in, for better or for worse.
Right. It's not like they can go to one of the four other big arenas in Los
Right.
Angeles.
That's all booked, I'm sure. So
Well, yeah, because they book these award shows out
way ahead.
months in advance. Usually, like after
Mm,
the years happen, they're already starting on the next year.
yeah. So I mean, this doesn't really change much to the people watching the Grammys. You'll be able to watch it in the same kind of way that prior, but yeah, interesting nonetheless. And like you said, it's a recurring theme probably this week that we'll talk about a lot of things being rescheduled and moved. Um, a side note to this story is that one of the major Grammy nominees this year, Beyonce, apparently had an announcement that was scheduled for the 14th of this past Tuesday and was delayed because of the fires. It's kind of unclear about what that was going to be. Perhaps a tour announcement finally, but that will be delayed. And I don't know if we mentioned it last week, but The Weeknd has delayed his record release to coincide with the fires because that Rose Bowl performance he was planning on is no longer going to happen on that date.
Right. I know the Rose Bowl performance was postponed. I didn't realize that
Yeah.
the album itself would be postponed as
Yes.
well.
He did that in tandem. He did both at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw the Rose Bowl one. I was like, "Ooh, maybe I can get tickets now."
Nope.
Nope.
We'll see when it happens again, but
If slash when, yes.
yeah.
All right. Did you listen to anything?
No, kind of just doing catch up still. So yeah, no albums this week.
All right. Same here. Listen to a lot of Vinyl String Quartet. Very relaxful as we get into Monday.
Relax.
Uh, yeah. So let's go into video games where we start with
Yes.
new releases. And hey, has this game already been out?
No?
Well, at least some version of it has been out. It's another Dynasty Warriors game. Dynasty Warriors: Origins for the PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X.
Yes, as the name implies, this is a prequel to the Dynasty Warriors series. From what I understand, though, it's a Dynasty Warriors game, so you know what you're getting into. I read one blurb from a review that basically said, if you're not sold on Dynasty Warriors, this will not sell you. So, might not be for you.
All right. We also have Tales of Grace F remastered for everything. Wide release. You got it? You can play it. Also wide release. Ender Magnolia: Bloom in the Mist. That is indeed all caps, which is why I probably hurt your ears there. There's also Star Wars Episode 1: Jedi Power Battles 2025 remaster for everything. Wide release. You got it? You can play it. And lastly, Sin Duality: Echo of Ada for the PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X.
Sure.
Sure, why not? But
Weird to see Jedi Power Battles there, a game that I've not thought about in 25 years.
well, that's why it's getting a remaster.
I guess so.
All right. So let's then get into the video game news. And while we always
Yes.
talk about games being released constantly, well, PlayStation has decided to take some of their upcoming games off the schedule. Sony has canceled two unannounced PlayStation games, one of which was to believe been a God of War game. But before you panic, this was not a Santa Monica Studios God of War game.
No.
It would have been a live service God of War game. According to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier's report, that Sony canceled live service games in development at Bend Studios and Bluepoint Games, a report that was then confirmed by a Sony spokesperson. While Schreier's article doesn't describe the games in detail, he then took to Blue Sky, as we all do now, to confirm that the game Bluepoint was working on was a live service God of War title. Sony's spokesperson confirmed that both games had been canceled, quote, following a recent review, close quote, but stressed that neither studio would be closed down as a result of the cancellations, which is the best part of
Yeah.
this news.
Recent review, you could summarize as Concord.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is kind of two parts, right? Because you could go back before Concord and you had some rumors swirling about other live service games in the Sony stable being canceled. Like, remember the multiplayer live service expansion for The Last of Us Part 2?
Even though that's supposed to get its own standalone game and then
Yep.
goes completely shelved and canceled.
Yep. This was probably part of that original stable because
Hmm.
a couple years ago there was this big push from Sony that was like, we're going to make 11, we're going to buy Bungie, and we're going to have the Bungie team help the rest of these like teams make live service games like Destiny. We're going to make it a huge thing. Well, they've been dropping like flies ever since. None of these games besides Concord came out. And this is just further news once they had Concord to use as an example that they just decided to cancel the rest of them. So at this point, I don't know if any of their original live service game ideas have survived. It may be just completely a dead initiative at PlayStation now. What do you think, as a God of War fan, what would you have thought of a live service game in the God of War universe?
Reading about some scuttlebutt of people's theories. Because God of War came out with the DLC Valhalla, which was a very roguelike God of War experience where you're running through the different levels of God
Yeah.
of War and battling the different types of monsters and ultimately like gaining more treasures to level up. That would have been more in vein like that, but with different party members within the God of War universe. So you could have someone play as Atreus, you could have someone play as Freya, you could have someone play as Thor and do a 4-team gauntlet run. And that would be
Hmm.
more of like the live service game aspect, which sounds interesting because you have the
Yeah.
different fighting styles and tactics, and they have a plethora of villains and monsters to go through as well. So
Yeah.
something like that could have been on the docket,
And
especially if
yeah,
they want to go through more Norse mythology and bring in characters that they haven't brought in before, like Hela, goddess of death, and be like, oh, you want to escape death? Well, get through to Hela, and you
yeah.
and your team of four would armor up and level up and bow through the gauntlet that is escaping hell.
Yeah, and you could have imagined them expanding the loot system, which was already kind of that RPG style,
Mhm.
to have more drops for four
All the
people to
chests
share.
already
Yeah,
there implemented, with
right.
the rarity chests already implemented. So you have all the graphics kind of in place for something like this.
Yeah.
But as we saw that, yeah, it can be good skinned, but how much of that is going to be player retention once you
Yeah.
beat through it? Once you have your squad and you run through it 2, 3 times, how much of that are you going to run back through?
I think Concord may have just scared them from the idea now. And like even a franchise as strong as God of War is not a guarantee that people are going to that an audience is going to find the game and find it quickly enough for them to start making the money that they probably planned on making with this kind of thing. All of this is about the money. Like they wanted to make a live service game because it's an endless money printing machine if it works. But that's a big if. And Concord proved that it's not going to work all the time.
Right, especially with original IPs, which I can understand why they'd want to go with God of War or The Last
Right.
of Us, because those are established Sony IPs.
But now even that's not good enough for them. And so they went back to the drawing board, it appears. And now who knows what they're going to do
So
now.
I don't think it's uh necessarily Concord that kind of doomed all of these. I think you go one game prior to this. The
Hmm.
Crash Bandicoot 4v4 Arena Womped or whatever it was.
Well, that was not a Sony, that was
No,
not a
but that was
PlayStation Studios game.
right, but that was still like a PlayStation mascot branded.
Well, to be fair, Crash
Okay,
has
yes,
not
I
been a
know what you're gonna
PlayStation
say. Yes.
mascot in like almost 2 decades at this point.
Yeah. But some
O-
people like
Over 2 decades.
associate with them.
Yeah, yes. I know what you mean, though. Generally speaking, they've been fewer, the successes in that field have been fewer and far between. You pretty much just have Fortnite to look at as an example of one that's really, really clicked. And Sony's own Helldivers 2. But as people are very like quick to point out, that again, not a PlayStation Studios game initially. That was a sequel to Helldivers, which was an independent game. And so the scope of that project is completely different. But when you look at it as a multiplayer success for Sony, it's very easy for people to bunch it in with these other games. But really, it's a different thing.
And
So,
I know people
yeah.
are like screaming at us like, what about Marvel's rivals?
But that's also not a. We're just right now talking about PlayStation Studios output. They would love to have a
Mhm.
Marvel Rivals, but the reason why Marvel Rivals works is the Marvel part. People flocked to it because it was these familiar characters that they love that they could play as. It was free to play, and third, it had all of those characters from the jump. You do not have to unlock them. You don't have to pay for them. This is why Marvel Rivals worked. It was a perfect storm of great ideas that clicked immediately. Concord didn't have the IP recognition, and you had to pay 50, $60 for it. The worry about God of War, I'm sure, from them is that they would probably refuse to sell that free to play. They would absolutely charge $60 to $70 for that game. And that already leaves it potentially dead in the water.
Right, because we just saw what happened with Kill the Justice League, Suicide
Right.
Squad.
Yeah. A great example, also. Yeah. So anyway, we don't need to beat this horse to death.
It's
It's
okay.
already dead.
PlayStation already put the horse to pasture.
Exactly. But yeah, no, not surprising at all. I am not shocked by this news. And yeah, you're right. The best part about the story is these people still get to work.
Yes, but there is something that was shocking this
Eh,
week.
not really. It was finally something that we all saw coming finally happened. This is the real news story of the week, but you had in the thoughts section, so I had to come up with something else.
Well, I
Uh,
figured we were going to talk about it anyways
but yeah, this is the
because it's not
biggest
really like
news.
yes. Nintendo announced the Switch 2
Yes.
officially in develop or officially coming out
Yes.
at some point, but that's all we got. It was a 2 minute trailer teaser.
Yes, but there was a lot of information in that small 2 minutes that I think is worth talking about, especially considering the rumors that were swirling prior to this announcement, and now the waiting we'll have to do until April when we find out more.
Yeah, 4-2. It'll be the
Yes.
next time that they talk about the Switch 2.
Yes. So let's talk about basically what's in this trailer. So first thing that they emphasize is that the Switch 2 is bigger. It
Mhm.
is looks like the actual body of the console as well as the Joy-Cons are larger in size than the original Switch. So that means much larger than the Switch Lite, which was even smaller than the original Switch. So yeah, you're getting a size upgrade. That's out of the gate. That was the first big thing that we noticed.
Speaking of, I got mine right here to show comparison to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right, exactly. And color-wise, you're right on the money there too, because it
Mhm.
seems like the launch unit will be a dark
All
gray,
black,
similar to the one you're
all
holding,
gray.
and it will have accents of color. The classic blue and
Mhm.
orange that we come to associate with the Switch will be in the insets of the control sticks and on the sides of the Joy-Cons. And that's the other big confirmation that we saw is that everything that was rumored about the Joy-Cons is confirmed. They are magnetized to the side of the
Yep,
unit. They no
you
longer
go right into
slide to
it. You
connect.
don't,
Yep.
no sliding anymore.
Um, they do in fact have what appears to be an IR sensor on the side of it, which the trailer showed off some sort of mouse-like capacity, confirming that rumor we talked about last week, where you can slide the edge on a surface and use it as a mouse.
Yep, there is one already on one of the Joy Cons,
Right. But
but
this
not
one
both of
looks
them.
like your computer mouse. This one looks like the bottom, the laser on the bottom of your mouse that you have in front of you
Yep,
probably right now.
yep,
Yep,
right there.
exactly. Other than that, the one thing we don't know about the Joy-Cons is there's a mysterious C button that has appeared on the right Joy-Con that nobody knows what it does.
Hmm.
So we'll have to find out more about that. I have my thoughts, but I'll hold on to them. Um,
Is it not C for share?
That's my guess was C for capture, like a dedicated screenshot button almost, but there's
Right,
already
but
a
they already
capture
have
button on
that
the
on.
Switch.
Yeah, they already capture button right there on the Switch.
Right. So I don't know. I don't know what that would be. We'll find
Like a
out.
start. Well, because you got the home button on one side and the capture button on the other.
Right. But now there's two. So we'll see. Um, then the other things that were confirmed from the trailer is full backwards compatibility with the Switch one with an asterisk. So this means that most games that you have physically on a cart and digital games that you bought prior to the Switch 2's release will be compatible with Switch 2. But it did say there was an exception made for specific games that will be named at a later date. Here's my thought process, and it seems like a lot of people seem to be on the same wavelength. It's games that require the Joy-Cons to be like for their form factor. Two
Attached to a
example,
separate
yes,
peripheral.
peripherals. So, for example, features that may not be on the Switch 2 game, Switch 2 Joy-Con is that front IR sensor you were talking about.
Hmm.
So there are many games in 1-2 Switch that may not be compatible. So that's one game that's probably on that list. And then, unfortunately, to me specifically, Ring Fit Adventure, because the Ring Con accessory uses the slide mechanic to hook up to the Joy-Con, won't be compatible. So that's kind of sad.
Unfortunately, will not be compatible. Yeah,
And a
that's
lot of
what
people
I say.
also
Most
mentioned,
people too. Yeah,
yeah, a lot of people also mentioned the the cardboard construction kit game that they put
Lubo.
something like that that they put out a few years ago.
Right,
Labo, Labo,
Labo.
Nintendo
Close.
Labo also required some sliding mechanics occasionally, and that the form factor of the Joy-Con. So
Hmm.
that also will likely not be compatible. But pretty much everything else, especially if it just used like a Pro controller or just the Joy-Cons, like for normal gameplay, will come over without an issue. Now, they didn't explicitly announce any new games in this trailer, but what they did do was they showed footage of what appears to be a new Mario Kart. Seems all points uh seem to suggest that this would be a brand new game, not another re-release of Mario Kart 8. Some people did some counting and found out that there were 15 racers on the track that they showed, which suggests that the total amount of racers has increased from 12, which could lead to some more interesting Mario Kart races. People also pointed out that there's actually 26 slots in that opening starting line, so suggesting there could be twice as many racers in this Mario Kart. And there's all sorts of other conspiracy theories about that footage. Some people speculating that it might be an open world racing game, that there might be pit stops involved where you could like have other kind of goals during races, like maybe swapping characters mid
Or
race.
before swap out your
Yeah.
racers.
So there's a lot of already theories. There are already a lot of theories out there about what this might be for the mean for the future of Mario Kart. But honestly, it looked like Mario Kart to me. It didn't look too much graphically different than what we've seen in 8 Deluxe. And so we really will have to wait until that presentation on in April to know what if that's one, a real game, and two, what
Mhm.
other games we might be seeing. So yeah, that's what we know. That is the Switch 2. What are your kind of feelings about what they showed?
One thing you forgot is that they changed the kickstand of the
Oh, yeah.
Switch.
I mean, it
Remember,
needed
you
to
have
be
this.
better. Yeah.
Oh
It's a
yeah, this
lot.
little guy,
It
the
spans the whole
braking.
back of the unit. It also appears to be
Yes.
spring loaded somewhere, like
Hmm.
in a way where it like can lower down further than it used to be able to do, which is a neat addition.
Yeah, looks like it, a couple different angles I could adjust to. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get more information, but it
Yes.
looks fun. I mean, if you never bought the Switch, guess what? You get Switch 2 and get all that
All those
backlogged
games.
catalog as you want.
Day one, that
So,
is an incredible catalog. Like
oh yeah.
that's yeah. Um,
I wonder if that's how much of this is that they don't have like, well, one, it is Switch 2, so people associate Switch, so like just bring over your games.
mhm.
But two, how much of it is we don't Nintendo might not have anything outside of say Mario Kart at launch ready for the Switch 2.
I doubt that. It seems like it is likely that a lot of late Switch releases, like the
Mhm.
upcoming Pokemon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime
Already, so that's
4,
already developed for the Switch. Yeah.
are likely going to have some sort of enhancements for Switch 2. So they will be kind of, borderline launch games where they'll be
Hmm.
so close to the launch of this thing that it'll probably be like, you might as well just wait kind of vibe. At
Right.
least that's what I would plan on doing. Um, and then but the other half of this is that rumors are currently swirling about what companies already have games ready. As of today, Steven Totilo, who does reporting in the video game scene, said that he asked a bunch of developers or in publishers whether they had Switch 2 games to announce, and they all said no. So everybody is being very tight-lipped, but that's Nintendo for you, right? Like they
Hmm.
want them to wait until the date that they say that it's okay to say anything. So that's one thing. However, there's a lot of rumors that suggest otherwise. Ubisoft classically always has games ready for Nintendo launches. Wouldn't be surprised if they had a bunch ready here, especially considering that Assassin's Creed Shadows just got delayed, maybe because of this. Who knows? Also, Microsoft, weirdly enough, is on everybody's mind right now. And there's a strong rumor suggesting that Microsoft is going to have a bunch of Microsoft Studios properties, including but not limited to Halo and Gears of War, ready to announce day one for Switch 2.
Hmm.
It makes sense with their new initiative.
Hmm.
This could also coincide with PlayStation releases of those games as well. Master Chief Collection and some sort of equivalent Gears of War collection seem to be the likely picks here that we might see.
It would make sense, especially if the Switch 2 has the better hardware, the beefier hardware to actually
Yeah.
run these things.
Roughly, if we're
And not
guessing,
720 HD like the Switch.
yeah. If we're guessing based on the power of the Switch 1, which was roughly the power of let's say a base PS4,
Hmm.
We can estimate, with how much time has passed, that the Switch 2 will probably be around the speed and power of an Xbox Series S. Not an X, but an S. So it will be compatible, it would be capable of 4K graphics, but probably not as detailed as what we're used to.
Or
And
as
it'll be,
smooth. Yeah.
like we've reported, it will be upsampled with DLSS style technology as opposed to doing 4K native.
Which we haven't really covered here, but we've seen through all the rumors of the Switch
Yeah.
2. And that's one thing that I want to point out is that we've heard a lot of rumors about the Switch 2 hardware,
Yeah.
but like you said, not a lot of rumors about the Switch 2 games that will
And
come
that's
soon.
starting to trickle out now as we know more solid stuff and that previous things were confirmed now to be true. Um, the last thing I want to really talk about real briefly here is this idea that seems to capture people's imaginations this week since the reveal. Is this boring? Like we know Nintendo as a risk taker in a lot of cases. The Switch was a risk. Before that, the Wii U was a risk that didn't pay off. Before that, the Wii was a risk that hugely paid off. So, and of course, the DS is in that conversation as well, right?
Hmm.
With Switch 2 being the first Nintendo console to just straight up have a number on it, and 2 being pretty much the same form factor and having very little in innovation, you could say, has Nintendo kind of lost the groove a little bit? Do you think this is kind of a boring take for them?
No,
Okay.
because you have to go way back to from the NES to the SNES.
Hmm.
I would say, where there was a whole lot of innovation, maybe graphics wise there was, but not a whole lot of innovation between like the hardware and console, like
Yeah,
handheld
form
itself.
factor.
Yeah, form factor. But otherwise you go from like Game Boy to Game Boy Color. Same kind of thing. Yes, you got color into it, but it's still kind of the same Game Boy stuff. Still play your old Game Boys. So I want to work into that kind of leap here.
Yeah. I would even say it's similar to N64 to GameCube. Despite the cartridge going to CD format, there wasn't a whole lot like capability wise that really changed. Like you were still basically just playing games with a regular controller. Sure, the GameCube controller was kind of wacky, but it wasn't that wacky looking back at it. Like it seemed to be kind of just a better version of the same thing they were doing, and that's what's we're getting here.
Well, that's why I akin it to the Game Boy Color, because you could play the
Mm,
same Game Boy games on your Game Boy Color. Same thing here. You can
right.
play your old Switch games, most of them, on the Switch too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm honestly don't get what people are complaining about. I think the innovation will come in the games. Like if you're looking for innovation in the console, well, there's also still a lot we might not know that it can do. The mouse thing, we can only kind of have the idea of what it might do. We don't know what it will mean in a game. Like there's all sorts of things you can do with with like idea wise with a mouse style controller. What if you use them both at the same time? What crazy things you could do there? Like there's so many possibilities. And well, again, there's maybe stuff about this hardware that we don't know yet. So I would say two things. One, it's okay for Nintendo to just iterate sometimes. They've done it in the past, like you said. And two, hold your horses. Wait until April to really find out what this thing can do. We might all be shocked.
Yeah. 2025, year of the Switch or Switch
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, it's going to be success no matter what. You're going to buy it because you're going to want to play Nintendo games. All of you people don't know what you're talking about. Like, just hold on, just trust the process, and you will be happy. It seems like there's nothing Nintendo can do, I think, to mess this one up.
Yes, there is.
Okay, what?
Region lock.
They've been over that for a while, so I think we're
Yes, I
okay.
know. All right. Or I know what they could do. Price point. That's how you mess it up.
Yeah, what's your guess there? I have my guess.
Uh I want to say 299, but I feel like seems high, right?
I think that ship has sailed. I don't think we are in a 299 world anymore.
Yeah, because I want to say 299, but I'll feel more like 350 probably.
It's four. It's 399 out the door.
You think
I
so?
think that Well, consider that that was roughly the Series S price point, and that's roughly what you're looking at here.
Yeah,
It is they cannot play ball when the PS5 and Series X are still $500
or
consoles.
600s. Yeah,
There's no way they can go that high, but the thing is not cheap. And especially competing handhelds now, like the Steam Deck, have proven that people are willing to pay around that $400 mark. So
mhm.
this thing is $400. That's also roughly what they're like what they're charging for the Switch OLED right now. I doubt that that changes. That's going to be their flagship model going forward. So everything
The
before that
OLED's
will
at
go down.
400.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, that's probably where
Okay.
you see this entry. And then if they really want to have a deluxe version of this, they could sell an OLED version that with more storage, and that's where your 450 comes in.
Okay.
But I think, yeah, I don't think they go lower than four.
All right. Well, let me dream.
I know, I wish, but no,
Let me
probably
dream for
not.
3 months until they give a full announcement. All right. Anything else in video games then?
That was pretty much it. A lot of the rest of the stories were, like I said, more scuttlebutt about the Switch, more rumors, and that's pretty much where we're at lately. The discourse is dominated by Switch talk.
Yep. Which is why we need an actual like news story rather than just like, oh yeah, Switch announced.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, so you play anything else then? Still
No,
waiting on stuff.
did a little catch up with Infinity Nikki, but else otherwise not really.
I've been going through Infinity Nikki and doing all the battles now.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I
Well,
did the
because
thing where I upgraded all the Eureka stuff, and it actually does help a lot.
yeah, it does. I've been sweeping everyone just by doing the recommended stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that recommended. Oh my God, that's saving my butt. I still have hit a wall though. Pretty much everybody in the islands, the Sky Islands area, I
Yeah.
still can't beat. I still have to figure out I still have to like upgrade my outfits for the that one, I think.
Okay, I'm not there yet. I'm going through the meadows now, and then Stonewall, and then the islands.
Hmm.
But yeah, Infinity Nikki. That's why it's on our list.
Still there.
All right, let's go into television then, and we go right into the sports corner. Do. And yeah, it may be winter time over here, but it's summer in Australia, and that's why the Australian Open continues. But if you are unable to watch the Australian Open as it plays live, or if because your broadcast feed may black out some matches, well, I have some positive news for you. If you don't mind a little bit of viewing uh, awkwardness, the Australian Open YouTube channel account has been streaming several matches in full, with the caveat that the players are displayed in a Nintendo Wii-like cartoon avatar that mimics their every move. So, by displaying the matches in this video game-like format, it technically means that there's no breach of strict broadcasting rights. We've seen this real a lot more currently with Disney Plus as they do their Sunday Fun Days with the NFL of both the Toy Story and more recently the Simpsons for Monday Night Football, where the feed is delayed by 2 minutes, but because they sync the audio to the video, there's really no like delay that you can see if you're watching it. You
Mhm.
just may get the notification on your phone right before it happens.
Yeah, it's a neat workaround, I think. And I saw a picture of what these guys look like, and they're charming little avatars. Um, yeah, just one of them to raise their foot so we can see what the bottom of an Australian Open avatar's shoe looks like.
I'm sorry, this is not challenging. You cannot get the video, the camera point
From
up
up
through the
under
mat.
the yeah. Ah, rats.
Yes. But yeah, the Australian Open continues. They're currently in round four, leading into the quarterfinals. But we should know who will be in the finals by the time we record next week.
Okay,
Just because the finals will then be on the 26th, which is the following Sunday of the time we
got
record.
it.
Let's see here. Real briefly, NBA trade deadline, February 6th. It's coming. So be on the lookout for teams making trades, trying to get to that championship. and that will
Mhm.
happen both. I think it's right before the All-Star break too.
Okay.
Over in the NHL, because they run simultaneously, Alex Ovechkin holds a new record for the number of goaltenders scored on, currently at 179. He was at 178 uh, with Jaguar, for a while there, but then they put in a backup goalie, and Ovechkin got his 179th goalie,
Nice.
which is kind of impressive. 179
Yeah.
different goalies that you score on.
Yeah, that's wild.
Um, the other person doing amazing stuff, as always, McJesus over here, Connor McDavid, scored his 1,044th point for Edmonton in his 10 years there. This will place him second in franchise, just behind someone named Wayne Gretzky, who scored 1,669 points for the team in 9 years.
I mean, there's a reason why they call him the greatest. Can't beat
Yeah,
that.
I mean, another 600 points and a year less.
Right. It's already too late. You can't beat that.
Well, the reason he's in second is because the guy who wasn't second was Wayne Gretzky's teammate, who had 1,043 points.
Yeah.
So, insane to have like those kind of numbers on the same team.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's go. All right. Now let's go over to American football, where we're going to
The
talk
band?
about the playoffs. So,
Playoffs?
yeah, all the top seeds advanced because typically you want the home team who is the top seed to advance because you got home field advantage.
Yeah.
Except for the Buccaneers because Baker Mayfield's an idiot. Well, he is, but also Jaden Daniels is like just dominating everything and probably going to win Rookie of the Year because of it.
Okay.
But yeah, the Washington Commanders
Hmm.
advanced, and all the other home teams advanced. Even the Rams, who were not at home, won. The visual games are this upcoming weekend. The two teams that were on by, the Chiefs and the Lions, will be playing this upcoming week.
Okay.
But we did get a little sneak peek into next year, the 2025 season, as the NFL likes to do schedule games outside, overseas, internationally. Well, starting in 2025, the NFL can schedule up to 8 leagues or up to 8 league operated regular season games abroad. We already know that 3 of them will be in London and 1 of them will be in Berlin. Last year we had one in Rio, which they're probably going to do again. So that's 5. And they're going to add another one announced, which is going to be in Madrid, Spain, where the Dolphins will be hosting the team. Well, the
Okay.
Dolphins will be playing. Unsure who they're going to be playing against first, but Dolphins are scheduled to be the home team in Madrid. And this is the first time the NFL will be playing a game in Madrid, Spain. So,
Okay.
yay!
Yeah,
Advanced
sure.
Alliance. Also,
What do you
yay! Dolphins get one less game.
what do you think about those last two places are, the mystery locations?
Like I said, up to 8. They may not schedule them.
Sure.
We've done Berlin. They've done Germany. They've done Munich before. They might go back there. There's 3 in London. They may do Paris because we just had the Olympic Games in there last year. So the infrastructure is still there for them to use. Uh, I'd be interested to see if they go anywhere outside of Europe or South America into the Asian territory or the territory in Asia. But we will see because passports, international games, and time zones, and wearing out
Yeah.
players.
Yeah. Tricky thing to organize,
Yep.
but yeah, they're gonna do it.
All right. And lastly, in the sports section, we got to talk about the D League, the college football playoff championship game is this upcoming Monday, and nothing else that happened on Monday will take center stage away from it. As the Ohio State will take on the Notre Dame football team.
Mhm.
Both entered the conference playoffs at the number 8 seed and number 7 seed, respectively, which means that the extended bracket actually ended up working in the favor of these kind of fringe teams that, if they kept it to the four teams, would definitely not have made it uh, into this championship game. By
Mhm.
extending it out to 12 teams, you're able to have the seventh and the eighth seed mm, prove themselves to be the best of the teams and come into the championship game.
Right.
So yes, the playoff format worked.
Turns out,
But
finally.
yeah, but unless you're on the other side where it's like, oh, my team lost because of the stupid playoff format, blah blah blah. Like, oh no, your team should have played better. Oh no, your team should have probably benched Quinn Ewers. Oh no, your team
Yeah.
probably should have like actually thrown the ball instead of running every down.
I mean, yeah, like it's important to keep in mind that this structure is relatively new
Mhm.
compared to a lot of our traditional playoff kind of structures in other sports. So the fact that we actually have a really successful version of this is good news. I think that this is the template that they can use going forward.
It definitely is. I think they will keep this 12-man team at least. I could see for the next, well, through the rest of this decade, for the next 5 years, and probably into the 2030s. Oh, it
Yeah.
sounds so futuristic, the 2030s.
2030s. Yeah, let's not talk about the 2030s yet. I'm not ready.
We may not get to the 2030s. Anyways,
Anyway.
yeah, that's it for sports.
All right. That means we can take this on over into television news. For this week, we have a follow-up story mentioning those fire stoppages we were talking about earlier. Not only did the Academy have to reschedule music awards, but the Television Academy and the television industry as a whole had to put a brief pause on productions that were happening near those fire locations. However, this past week, several shows and productions have resumed shooting on sound stages, however, with monitoring by health and safety professionals. This includes the CBS show NCIS Origins, Papa's House, and The Neighborhood, as well as ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live. Those have all returned to taping this week. In a memo provided to Variety, any cast or crew impacted by the fires, or those who cannot make it safely to the set, will still receive their regular pay, which is nice to hear. Still, there are other shows that have not resumed filming, including shows like NBC Universal's Hacks, Suits LA, Ted, and Loot, as well as Amazon's Fallout Season 2. So we'll still have to wait for all of the pause productions to resume. They are monitoring the situation, I'm sure, daily and will
Mhm.
determine what the best date to return is. But it seems like we're at least starting to see the mechanism power back up, that we're going to start seeing more productions take place.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see first, and as was noted here with the CBS shows, anything with a closed soundstage, anything that they can
Yeah.
control the environment of, anything where they're not outdoors, they'll continue
Hmm.
to shoot. And you may see some script reworking to where everything's going to be held
Maybe.
indoors on a closed set and not a whole lot of stuff being held outside, which is why you see stuff like NBC Universal, Hack, Suits, Ted, which have outdoor sets um,
Hmm.
not currently in production, including Fallout, which has multiple sets to work on. We will probably see some sets move and shift around, or maybe some scripts having to be reworked for the back half of their seasons. Like, okay, we can no longer shoot here; we have to change it.
Hmm.
And I wonder how much that will be placed into some of our favorite shows. Like I could see them do something with Loot about it, or bringing up the wildfires as a part of that storyline and incorporating it.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, uh, much like we had with the writer strike recently, and how
Hmm.
season had to be curtailed to accommodate for that. Same thing with the SAG after strike. I could see some things similar here, where
Hmm.
production and especially the writing production will have to be curtailed to what they are able to do. But it's
Yeah.
good to see them being back in business, and it's good to see them uh, still getting their regular pay, even for those who can't make it to the set.
This is very much a lighter and more concentrated version of what we saw with the COVID shutdown back
Yes.
in 2020. So, yeah. I'm sure it won't take too much longer, like we mentioned in the music story, for this all to be figured out. And yeah, only a matter of time, I'm sure.
Yep. But
Right.
sound stages, they're big,
Yeah.
they're useful. Hopefully most of them didn't burn down in LA.
Yeah, good thing, right? Could have been way worse, but yes.
Yes.
Shout out to everybody who's working on those fires and making sure that they're contained so businesses like this can continue doing their work. So, shout outs. All right,
Yes.
let's move on. We have some thoughts. We watched some television this week. Television's back, turns out.
Yeah. Television kind of wrapped.
I'll talk about mine real quick because it won't take very long. Peacock is a series of documentaries all about Saturday Night Live that launched this week.
Is this
That
the
is,
4 episode documentary?
yes,
Okay.
yes, this is leading towards the SNL 50 official 50th anniversary celebration that will happen on NBC. But I am having a great time with these. Honestly, way better than I thought. They are fascinating. I thought this was going to be pretty boilerplate, but they each of them so far, I've watched two of them out of the four, and they really delve into some interesting like parts of the Saturday Night Live history and process. The first episode is all about the audition process, and actually you get to see in it a lot of audition footage from some famous cast members. And it's cool to see some of that. I had not like some of this footage I had never seen before. And they kind of a lot of interviews talking about the process, how like when you get called to be on the show, like who gets chosen to be a writer instead of a cast member, depending on need, whether you get called multiple times to do follow-up auditions, what the process of that looks like. Like we've heard bits and pieces of it in the past, but this is like the most comprehensive. And I've read the book, Live from New York, but this is such a concentrated, and since it's visual, you get to see a lot of that stuff that you've never seen before. Fascinating stuff. But the second episode was even more fascinating. It takes you through an entire week of what it's like to be a writer on the show. Like the amount of detail is incredible. Like they, I guess, had the documentary crew on the episode from last season that Io Debris hosted. And so you get to see every step of that process. So pitching to her in Lauren's office, to the writing on Tuesday night, the scramble of all the writers. You get to kind of see like the writer's process coming up with sketches. Then to the pitch, like the big table read, where everybody reads the scripts for the first time, and Lauren does the cull at the end of the night to decide which ones
Mhm.
go, and to the like the actual blocking. The writers do so much more than I thought. They are literally producers on the sketches that they do. Like every aspect of the sketch they have to have input on. So they're going in to the prop makers and telling them that what they need prop wise. They're going to set design meetings and looking at blueprints. They're going into the control room with the camera people to determine which shots they prefer during like a dress rehearsal. It's to the point. Like they literally have to be point people on every single aspect of their sketch. It's insane. Like it seems so hard to be a writer on that show. But yeah, and so it's a really fascinating look. I'm planning on finishing up the series sometime this coming week, but yeah, just pretty good work. It really gets you kind of inside the process of making Saturday Night Live.
Are all 4 episodes available on Peacock right now?
All four are available right now already.
Are they all hour and a half?
So they vary. The first one is pretty long. I believe the shortest one is the third episode, which I'm going to next, which is only about 44 minutes. But
Okay.
they all oscillate between like the 44 to the hour and change mark.
All right. Because there's something I want to keep on my radar leading up to, like you said, I think it's the February 12th.
Sounds right.
Wait, no, it can't be the 12th because that's the Super Bowl. Well, no, the 9th is the Super Bowl. So the 12th is a Wednesday. I think it is the February 12th
Okay.
or the 16th. Or it's one of those dates. But yeah,
I mean, we'll
leading up
see.
to it. But leading up to that on NBC, yeah, because I want to watch that. And then when it's all available on all 4 episodes available on Peacock, I
Hmm.
will definitely be watching that. Hopefully we can both finish and we can talk about it all in depth next week. So I don't
Yeah.
want to ask a whole lot of questions because
Right.
what you're
Yeah.
saying, like I kind of get glimpses of because I listen to the Lonely Island and Seth Meyer podcast,
Right. 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 Yeah.
and they give a lot of the behind the scenes stuff too of not just the SL Digital shorts, but also the week of and like the sketches that they were in too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you're
Totally.
saying
So
like sounds familiar because I'm listening to that on a
right.
weekly
So that would be
basis.
it's a perfect accompaniment to that. Then you
Yeah.
get to see a lot of it. But yeah,
Oh,
it's
that
cool.
sounds great.
It's cool.
Also currently watching in the middle of The Traders season 3.
Yep.
Awesome. Also on Peacock. And over on Max, The Pit. Currently 3 episodes in. This is the Noah Wiley medical drama where each
Mhm.
episode is 1 hour in uh ICU trauma ward.
Yep.
It's fun. It's fascinating. If you don't take anything away from this, the cast that they've assembled is outstanding. I
Okay.
love everyone in this cast. I want to see more of everyone here. I hope it gets picked up for more seasons.
Okay.
The just how they all mesh together and move around, like with the camera and everyone just meeting each other and melding, it all works so great. Think like ER, but with the Western drama of
Mhm.
moving around, like the camera moves with everything. You're able to go from one room to the next. The camera pans from you see everyone like working like all intimately in on one person. Then you get to behind like the desk. It's gonna swoop around and go to the next plot. It's fascinating. It's fast moving. And yes, because each episode like takes place in an hour, by the time you get to episode 3, you gotta have bathroom breaks. And that's actually one of the plot points is one of the doctors is trying to go to the restroom but keeps getting pulled away. And I think that's hilarious in this.
That's
But
good. That's a good
also
move to
like
do early on.
it's yeah, it's gonna do because otherwise you'd be like, well, they're gonna go through like 13 episodes and no one's
Yeah.
gonna take a pee break, no one's gonna eat.
Yeah,
But
you're
it's
no
funny because
longer
like throughout the
asking when, because that was the thing with 24, right? It's like, when does Jack Bauer take his shit?
yes. But like over the episode, like, you see people like giving each other food, giving them advice, like telling them
Yeah.
to go rest. It's like, oh, they're actually functioning like a real hospital, not like a medical drama. But
Right.
at the same time, I can start to see through these first 3 episodes the kind of plot points and through points of like sometimes like you see the here, but you just keep following, just keep poking in over the course of a day, like you do in an actual hospital, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
the problem gets bigger. Like, oh, like you think it's just one thing, but it kind of snowballs to the next thing. And it's fascinating, it's fast paced, and like I said, I love every actor here. I want to see them do like other stuff as well. I can see these other people doing other stuff as well, and just the acting is so great. Um, I know it's early. I know it's January. Might end up on my top 5. Right now, it's very early, but it's a really, really good show. I highly suggest you watching. Everyone watch this. It's only 3 episodes in. You can easily get caught up. But like I said, each episode is an hour long because it takes place an hour within a hospital. And I kind of jumping on board to waiting to watch it every week instead
Okay.
of like trying to binge at the very end, like I do with most shows,
Yeah.
because I want to get back in with these people. And that's the
Yeah.
sign of a great show.
Wow. Yeah, that's high praise. I've heard good things about this thing. It's probably not my cup of tea, but it seems like the people who this is made for really love it.
Oh, yes. Blood warning, gore warning.
Yeah.
First episode, they
Gross.
snap someone's foot back into place. So if that
Ew.
at all sounds like cringy, like you just
Uh,
did,
yeah, no
maybe
thanks.
not for you. But the fact they don't shy away from stuff like that, I really enjoy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. The
All
Pit.
right.
That's on
That's on Max, HBO.
Max. Got it.
And lastly, show that actually wrapped up that I almost wasn't going to talk about, but I did able to finish a write-up, which you can see my thoughts on it on
Mhm.
MediaBoatPodcast.com.
Yep.
The latest Star Wars show, Skeleton Crew, or should I say Goonies in Space?
Yes.
Because yes, that's pretty much what it was billed as uh, by the director of the Marvel Spider-Man trilogy, the home trilogy, John Watts.
Mhm.
So he premiered this thing at D23. It was announced at D23, and it was like, okay, Goonies in space. That's all anyone could compare it to. It was like, all right, I get it. That doesn't sound like my cup of tea because, in case I never said it on this podcast before, for some reason, I know I have. I'm not the biggest Goonies fan.
Hey, You're among friends. I also don't get it.
I'm,
So
I'm, I'm
we're gonna have so
I
many
can
angry people, but I don't
understand
care.
the adventures of it.
Sure.
Or sorry, not
Yeah.
adventures, the plural. Adventure, singular,
Adventure.
because there's only one movie.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I'm just never a fan of the Goonies.
Same.
So having the Goonies in space, I'm like, it's kids. It's gonna be Spielberg-esque. Maybe I'll watch it. But
Yeah.
also because it came off of Ahsoka and the Acolyte, which were all like very plot heavy. How can you make
Hmm.
it not that plot heavy because it's technically a kid show? And for the most part, it succeeds. This is
Okay.
definitely a kid show. It keeps the right charm and charisma around to be just enough Star Wars knowledge, if you gather just from either cultural osmosis or just from watching the original trilogy or just movies, just like, okay, I understand what Star Wars is about. So one of the great things that Skeleton Crew has going for it is that you come in with just that general baseline of knowledge. You don't need to know all about the Jedi War. You don't need to know all
Hmm.
about the Rebellion, all about the Rebels, all about whatever happening in the Mandalorian, whatever Ahsoka did, whatever Andor's doing, whatever the Acolyte just did. You don't need to
Yeah.
know any of that. You can come this completely blind, as if you are a kid coming to Star Wars the first time, and you'll have a fun time with this. And that's the way the show should be treated, is that it's a wide breadth of accepting these kind of self-contained stories within the Star Wars universe. Yes, there are Star Wars elements thrown within it, but it's not the crutch of it. Like
Hmm.
Ahsoka is the crutch because it's connected to the Jedi. The Acolyte is the crutch because it's connected to the Jedi's. The Andor is the crutch because it's connected to Rogue One.
Yeah.
Mandalorian is a crutch because it's connected to, well, Boba Fett connected to is a crutch because it's connected to Mandalorian. Mandalorian is so thing. So think of like remember like Mandalorian the first season, how you can come up with just a completely like base knowledge and have a
Yeah.
fun time with it. Same thing with Skeleton Crew. Come with just a base knowledge of Star Wars and you have a fun time with it.
Yeah.
It's
That's
eight
good because
episodes. It's
yeah.
really short and it all runs really fast.
Yeah, we've talked about on this show that the biggest roadblock for so many people is how do I know what's going on with Star Wars and the Marvel stuff is like that same kind of question is like, what do I have to already know to be engaged in this thing? And yeah, it's nice to see the ones that you don't have to have like encyclopedic knowledge to enjoy.
That's the one thing that Ahsoka butted up against is that people were like, "Oh, you have to watch these episodes of the Clone Wars to understand what's happening over here in Ahsoka." And I'm
Right.
like, "But then you're crutched to the show." Here, Skeleton Crew, none of that crutches. It's its own
Yeah.
thing set within the Star Wars universe. And this is what the Star Wars kind of one-offs and spin-offs should have been. Star Wars shows self-contained within the larger Star Wars universe, but not beholden to keep making sure that like it follows a strict timeline of rules.
Mhm.
So I thought I was gonna have, I thought I wasn't gonna like it. I ended up being satisfied by the time I got to the end. Even though Jude Law's character, biggest red flag in the world. Like you could see his twist coming a mile away. But
But
yeah, that's
yes,
Skeleton Crew.
your full thoughts will be on mediaboatpodcast.com in uh, uh if I have time tonight, but probably tomorrow.
That's
So I'll
fine.
have those up on the website tomorrow.
Yeah. All right.
All right, cool.
Did you watch anything else?
We start Celebrity Jeopardy is back. We watched the first
Hmm.
episode of that. There's a couple of those. Just brief shout out to the Abbott Elementary crossover with Always Sunny in Philadelphia happened last week. It's cute. It's fun. I mean, it's what you would think it would be.
Yeah.
But it's a good time if you're a fan of both shows. I think you would enjoy it. Um, what else? Yeah, I mean that's pretty much TV right now. For us.
Okay. Yeah.
Otherwise, we can move on.
Yep.
Let's skedaddle into cancellations and renewals.
What am I no longer watching?
No cancellations actually this week. We have a couple of renewals. NBC is bringing back another medical show, this time a comedy. St. Dennis Medical will be coming back for a second season. And I'm sure you are
I
thrilled to see
approve.
that.
I
Yeah.
approve of that.
then Fox is bringing back Murder in a Small Town for a second season.
Technically, that's a Canadian show that they got
Mhm.
picked up, and there's going to premiere on Fox as well.
All right. Then, unfortunately, we knew we were going to have to do it this week. We do have a couple of rough deaths. I'll start with one from the sports world. Bob Uecker, age 90, Hall of Fame broadcaster, and also had a role in the baseball movie Major League.
He was
Yes, we
the announcer in
yes,
Major League.
fitting, huh? Yes, we lost him this week. A classic voice of baseball, definitely recognizable figure, and will be missed.
Yep, he'll be missed just a bit outside.
I think you would appreciate it that.
Yes.
But the real rough one that has all sorts of people in their feelings this week was just yesterday. We lost David Lynch at age 78, obviously creator and director of such classics like the television series Twin Peaks and movies like Blue Velvet, the first movie adaptation of Dune with Kyle MacLachlan,
Mhm.
and all sorts of other projects related to or slightly outside of the realm of and universe of Twin Peaks. Um, Most notably, the Return series that happened on Showtime just a few years back. But yeah,
Yep.
a just a
Just
film legend, an aesthetic legend, a vibe that nobody could recreate.
your
Like,
director's favorite director.
yeah, a cult favorite in a lot of ways that expanded beyond that. Like, it's hard to describe now, but and I was too young to know at the time, but from what I understand is that Twin Peaks was kind of a little phenomenon back when it premiered in
Mhm.
the early 90s, 90 specific, I want to say. And it over time became kind of this cult thing, but it was a rating success at the time. A lot of people forget about that. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, and
the whole serialization in
yes,
dramatic TV, not
but
just for soap opera, it's brought
oh,
to primetime.
oh, and that you can see his fingerprints on so much that followed. Like it's a there's a reason why whenever there's something kind of weird and offbeat like that, they call it Lynchian. Like
Mhm.
that he became
He's a
a
verb
adjective
adjective.
like to describe things that were like his work, and that doesn't happen to everybody. That happens to artists of the like highest degree, and he definitely was one. So yeah, he will definitely be missed. There's already tributes at a Bob's Big Boy that he frequented in Burbank. People are leaving like things to honor him outside of that restaurant because he went there daily for like 7 years and had a milkshake and thought because that's just the kind of guy he was. So yeah, definitely will be missed. But man, the impact and legacy of the man we will see for years to come.
Yep.
And it gives me an excuse to go back to Twin Peaks, which I still have not finished. So
The
I'll
first one or
probably
the
do that
second
now.
one?
Any of it. I'm starting from the top. I have not watched it. We watched the first. I think we watched the pilot, and I think I'm picking up from episode 2. I want to say,
Okay.
but yeah. Um, those are your deaths this week. Let's move on then into the movies section, where we always start with weekend box office numbers. And you are already writing down what appears to be a new recurring segment of the show where we determine who was right predicting your number one or how much money the number one movie would make. Is that what we said?
Yeah, I think it was the over under.
Okay. But yes, your number one movie this week, Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, which you correctly picked as the number one movie this week.
Yes,
It made just $15 million, which, as you've
just
indicated
half
here,
of what I predicted at 30 million.
yes, which is, as you indicated here, means that yes, it was below your prediction. So that means I take the win this week, but I feel like it's a fluke. This is such a small release, all things considered. I don't think anybody really cared. And sure enough,
I put -1 because I way overshot it.
fair enough. But yes, following that at number two is Mufasa the Lion King with $14 million. That's how narrow, again, just like last week, the margin was between one and two. So that's at 189 million domestic.
Probably cross the 200 next week.
It'll make it. It'll make it there. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is at number 3 with $11 million this week. That's already at 204. Embarrassing, Mufasa. Number 4, Nosferatu, still here, $6.8 million this week. That's $81 million. That could be one of your rare art house movies to cross that 100 million mark and probably make its money back.
Yes.
Number 5, Moana 2, still here. $6.5 million. That's at 434 million. Just keeps on trucking.
Still keeps making money, but still behind Wicked 2 in full totals.
Yes, but notably, Wicked 2. Or Wicked, sorry, not Wicked 2. You said Wicked 2 and threw me off.
Yeah, I said because I said Moana 2, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Wicked also.
Wicked is no longer in your top 5 as you see, but yes, still making money in the background.
Yes.
All right. Upcoming this week, what do we have competing for our number 1 spot? I don't
Two movies.
We have September 5 or September 5th. I believe on the radio ad it said September 5, but I don't love calling it that.
I don't like calling that either, but they don't
Yeah.
add the TH, so it's not fifth.
I think it's because it's not an that's the way Americans say dates as we say the 5th. I think
Yes.
internationally you often hear it without that suffix. So yes, this is the film that is a which Olympics is
The
this?
Munich Olympics,
Munich
where the
Olympics.
hostages
Yes.
were taken. This is told from the story of the sports news crew that was covering
Right.
the Olympics, who then
Yes.
had to immediately switch to covering the hostage situation.
Yeah. So a fascinating movie. We'll see.
Mhm.
Also out this week is One of Them Days.
This is the Kiki Palmer and SZA film,
Yeah.
which looks kind of hilarious. Looks very Friday-esque to it because they're trying to get Kiki Palmer to a job interview to help him, and all the hilarity that ensues in trying to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Because
What do we
sometimes
think?
you just have one of them days.
Yeah. What do we think though? First off, do either of these movies take the number 1 spot?
Ah, I want to say one of them days will at least hit 10 million.
Okay.
At least I hope it does.
That's your number. So you think that's number 1 at 10?
I think it's low. Yeah, it's
You
gonna be
think it's
another
that
low
slow this coming week?
compared to what's out there.
Um,
Yes.
all right, then I'm gonna take a risk here. I say that neither of these movies are your number 1. I think Mufasa pops back up at number 1 because everything goes down, and I think it's narrowly above it at like 13. So I'm
You
gonna
think
take the
Mufasa goes from
over.
14 to 13?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take the over on 10, but I'm going to also add I don't think it's either of the new releases.
All
I think
right.
it's a
So you got
slow week.
Mufasa. I got one of them days. We may both go 0-2 next week.
We'll find out. All right. Let's move on. Our final story is a similar theme to our previous stories. Another thing delayed from the LA fires. This time, the Oscar nominations. Due to the California wildfires, the voting deadline for Oscar nominations was extended from January 12th to today, January 17th. This means that the nominations announcements that were originally scheduled for today, we would have had today on today's shows if the original schedule had held,
Yep.
have now been moved to be announced on next Thursday, January 23rd. This will coincide with the opening day of the 2025 Sundance Film Festival. Fun fact. The Oscars nominees luncheon, scheduled for Monday, February 10th, has been canceled because of the fires. They will not be held. Meanwhile, the scientific and technical awards, originally scheduled for February 18th, will be rescheduled to a later date that has yet to be determined. The nominations announcement that has been scheduled for the 23rd will now be a virtual event only and will no longer have in-person media coverage.
Yep.
So
This will
yeah,
now be once again just thrown on YouTube as a virtual event,
yeah,
which means next week when we record,
yes,
we will have our Oscar nominations. We will know who is up for Best Picture,
right.
which if they choose 10 films, I would say they're going to probably go with 8 this year.
Okay.
But we all get to see who's nominated for actor, actress, all the other categories, and let the bidding wars begin.
Yes, we will do our classic nominations competition again this year. So stay tuned for who will reign supreme. I lost bad last year, I think. So
Yes.
we'll
You
see.
took a lot of big swings and you
I took a lot of big
missed.
swings. Probably fewer big swings for me this year. Team
Yes,
Conclave, let's go.
Team Conclave.
Team Conclave. But yeah, so we will have our big nominations blowout for the Oscars next week. So stay tuned for that.
Yes, so
In
another
the
big episode
meantime,
next week.
indeed. So get ready for that. In the meantime, we'll wrap up today with a couple of movie thoughts. We've been watching some movies. So this says you caught up with the movie that I watched last week, Wallace and
Yes.
Gromit, or Revenge, Vengeance Most Foul. You have the
Yes,
wrong
I
name
put
here.
Murder Most Foul because that's the name of the Agatha Christie
Yes,
story.
Vengeance, Vengeance Most Foul. However, you did remember that it's foul like a chicken and not foul like foul.
Well, yes, it's foul like a penguin.
In this case, yes. What did you think of Wallace and Gromit?
I would say the most British thing ever.
Oh yeah.
It's cheeky.
Yes.
It is very cheeky. Uh, I don't know if I liked it because of humor, but there's definitely some charm in there because it is
Yeah.
Aardman. They do have some charm thrown in there. But oh my God, this script is the most like flat-faced, see it coming kids movie I've seen in a long time.
I don't know. I didn't think it was that predictable. I thought it was fun, and some of the
Oh, I'm
twists
sorry.
were,
You didn't see the robot gnomes turning evil?
I
You didn't
mean,
see the turnip being
yeah.
used, used again? You didn't see like the muteless fight between the protest between was it, Gromit and Mc Mc Chicken McLegs, whatever.
Feathers McGraw, thank you very much.
Yes, Feathers McGraw. No one talked in that entire fight.
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Predictable or not predictable. I had a lot of fun with this. It reminded me, like, it had just as much charm and humor as those original shorts and Curse of the Rabbit did back in 2008. I thought it was a worthy successor to those films. I had a great time with it, a grand time, if you will. I think this is a big bounce back from the Chicken Run sequel from last year,
Oh
which
yes.
I thought was terrible.
Oh yeah.
So this was way better than that.
Yeah, this was a lot more fun to watch than that Chicken Run
Yes.
sequel.
Yes. And yeah, it worked within the formula, I think, a lot better. Yeah, I had a good time with it. Disappointed that you did not have as much fun as I did.
I didn't have as much fun because it kept breaking its own rules.
Yes.
Rule number one with the robot gnome, it's voice activated.
Yeah.
How does Feathers McFowl communicate to the robot gnomes?
Through the computer. Like he piped in a bunch of data into them.
But how does he
He didn't
control
have to
the gnomes
talk to
then?
them. They're
He
not
can't.
only voice activated, they just are voice activated. That doesn't mean
He says
exclusively.
they're voice activated
Yes,
from my
that
voice.
does not mean that it's exclusive. Like if you take a voice activated, like if you take Siri, for example, if you piped in, if this was such a thing, you piped in a bunch of data into Siri, you could tell Siri what to do without having to voice activate her.
Uh,
I don't know. I think
no.
you're overthinking this children's movie.
My other thing about it is that in the first the opening scene where they get Wallace ready, you see Gromit go through the house, push a button buttons, push a bunch of levers to get him there. The next time you see that happen, when Gromit is sitting at the table already, all those buttons don't get pushed, yet Wallace appears fully ready. Buttons don't get pushed. You're breaking your own rules.
No, I think it just skips it because we already did that.
Yeah, but he's got all those traps and inventions have to be reset and pushed in the exact same order. Otherwise, what was the point of doing it in the first place?
Because the only reason is because they did that bit in the shorts and they needed to do it again. You're overthinking it.
They're breaking their own rules.
No, they just don't care that much. Also, it is stop motion animation. If in order to replicate all of that would require another like year of work.
I mean, you just do the 1980 shorthand. You just reuse old assets.
Well, you tell that to Nick Park because I don't know if he's going to listen to you. Anyways, maybe Wallace and Gromit just isn't for you.
I don't think
But
so.
what may have been for you though is the other movie, which by the way, Christy and I plan on watching this soon, so we will talk. I will have maybe a take on this next week.
Okay, I'll be real brief about this. I do have a write-up thoughts as well that will go on the website. You can
Okay,
add to it if you'd like.
we'll see.
But a real pain.
Yes,
The only reason I decided to put this on is because one, it was on Hulu, and two, Kieran Culkin won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor for it.
yes,
So I was like, okay, it's here. I got some time. It's an hour and a half. It's really quick. Plus, it's Jesse Eisenberg writing, directing, and
yeah,
acting in this. Like, okay,
right.
let me see what he's got here. Oh boy, does everyone talk like Jesse Eisenberg in this movie?
I mean, yeah, he wrote it.
Well, yes, but when that occurs, then you have Jesse Eisenberg talking to Jesse Eisenberg, and they both sound like Jesse Eisenberg, just talking to himself in a script. Like, yes, I get that's like how he wrote it, but your characters then don't sound that distinct because they're all saying relatively the same thing in the same fast-paced voice that he has. But somehow the banter between Eisenberg and Culkin actually works in this film that way. And I kind of liked when they were like together and bantering the whole time because you do have this like kind of like one fish out of water. They're on this Poland tour guide through the city of Poland
The city.
with a bunch of other random people. Mark would love this movie, and they're just everyone like unknowingly or knowingly like is on this tour has a different type of pain in their life, whether it's like physical pain or mental pain or emotional pain that slowly comes out over the course of this movie, but of like why they're there or like besides just like oh like this thought this would be a cool thing, but
Mm,
I kind of like harken back to like what the title of the movie is, a real pain. Is like, what is a real pain? And that's what this Asper tries to answer in this film
mhm.
because everyone has different types of pain. Everyone deals with pain differently. But then you also have like not just individual pain, but also this global theme of pain and suffering, especially when you go to Poland and you start talking about the Holocaust and you try
Right.
and compare something that tragic on that monumental scale to your own individual life of, well, maybe that pain's not that big of a pain. But I think that is where it loses me is that it kind of diminishes individual pain when you put it up against like the global world. Because yeah, we can like sit here and we can like think about like all the suffering in the world, and it could be very daunting and very depressing, and people get very depressed and very anxiety from it. But does that mean that you should try and diminish it because, well, yeah, all that's happening, but it's not happening to you. It's not happening right now. Yeah, it happened in the past, but you're not really affected by now, right? So it deals with this really weird uh theme of how do you deal with all of this pain and like hurt compared to not just yourself but everyone else, or
Mm,
should you even do that?
right.
And it kind of leaves you in this little bit of a, like ambiguous ending if you don't know like everything's going to be all right, but you kind of have the sense like it's okay if they're not all right. This wasn't supposed to be a solve everything. This is just to bring stuff that's like kept down and buried to the forefront. Like
Right.
you need to talk about this stuff. You need to talk about like what's paining you. And I think like there is some charm here. Your mileage definitely vary on this, but good thing is that it's 90 minutes. It's really short, gets in
Okay.
and gets out.
Yeah. Seems interesting. It seems like to bring up a lot of questions about the nature of pain, different levels of pain. It sounds interesting. And yeah, I heard that the dialogue and the banter between the two of them is the highlight.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah, well, you can check that out and then you can bring it up on next week's podcast. Which way
All
funny
right.
that way.
Sounds good. Oh, also we should mention you didn't mention it in the TV, but I'm assuming you're going to be watching Severance season 2, which just premiered.
Yeah, that premiered today or
Yes.
yesterday. Uh have a chance to watch it, I'll probably gonna that's why I'm gonna wait and like binge at the end.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to wait for my thoughts on that. But
All
yeah,
right.
I keep getting the ads for it. Really excited to get into that. I just haven't for this podcast.
Fair enough. All right. That will do it then for this week's edition of the Media Boat Podcast. Cool hour half here, basically.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us this week. We'll be back next week, as we said, for another episode of the show. We will have your Oscar nominations to talk about, so get ready for us to go long on that probably, as we always do every year. As well as all sorts of other stuff, as you mentioned. So tune in then. Where to tune in, you ask? Well, you can watch our video versions of the podcast on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and search Media Boat Podcast. Breaking news for our YouTube viewers this week. As of this most recent past episode, episode 469, you can now see clips of the episode in shorter bite-sized chunks in a special playlist that's been created on the channel. If you do not have an hour and a half to watch our show, you can watch just the segments you care about. So sometimes I will make that as specific as possible if we do go long on a specific thing. Other times, if we have a bunch that's similar, I might join it and maybe have a whole segment there. I'm going to kind of play it loose, just depending on how the show goes, because we vary every week with how
Yeah,
we
we do.
gather those things. So some weeks it could be, oh, I've spun off like the news portion because it's so meaty. Other weeks it could be news and thoughts or and new releases if it makes sense that way. So yeah. But those will be on our YouTube channel in the same stream as well as in that playlist for you. So check that out if you want shorter versions of what we talk about here. Or if you only care about music and you just want to listen to the music and you don't want to listen to video games, I understand. So if that's you out there, we've got a solution for you. Meanwhile, the whole big chunky thing is available in audio form if you're into that on podcast services of your choice. Just search Media Boat Podcast on there. You can also find our write-ups on mediaboatpodcast.com. As I mentioned, Mike will have pieces coming up this weekend up about both what was the first
A Real
one?
Pain and
A
Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew and A Real Pain. So check those out this week. And then you can also find an archive of our shows there as well. And then we're also on social media platforms like Blue Sky. Search MediaBoat to find our page there. And twitch.tv /MediaBoat, where you can find Mike playing the occasional video game.
Yep. I'll be getting into Someone Awesome's uh playoff because NFL playoffs are currently going
All
on. So
right.
gotta jump back into that. I will definitely be streaming some of those because you don't want to be seeing me running around with Infinity Nikki anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. And last but definitely not least, if you have questions, feedback about the show, anything you want us to read on the show while we're recording, email us at mediaboatpodcast@gmail.com. All right, that'll do it. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Be back
Have a good
next
one.
with more news, more thoughts, and the Oscars
Yes, get excited.
nominations.
Award season is here.
Award season. All right.
All right.
Bye.